Alicia, for being willing to talk with everybody at St. Mark's about your role in Godly Play. For those of you who don't know, Alicia is our master storyteller in Godly Play. She teaches every week. Alicia is mom to Jack, who's in middle school, and Sonia, who's in the 4th grade. And maybe tell us a little bit about how you came to St. Mark's.
Well, I first came to St. Mark's about 6 years ago. So what is that, 2014. And I got connected to the church actually through the preschool that the church was affiliated with at the time. And we got an introduction to the Godly Play program within the preschool. And then from there, I was able to meet Father Steve, and he just gave us a tour of the Godly Play classrooms that we use now. And so that was actually my link into becoming a parishioner at the time, because I was so interested in the program.
Cool. And then how did you get involved with Godly Play?
So I knew when we started going to church there that I wanted the kids to receive their religious education that way, through that model. I had known about the model actually before from a friend who taught it at a Catholic church. So I knew generally what it was about. And so then as the kids started going, I was a kind of a passive participant in the beginning. But after the first couple of years, there was an opportunity, I guess. They didn't have a teacher, and I thought, oh, I love the curriculum so much. And I had a lot of faith that the curriculum would be able to guide me through any spots I don't know, since I'm not an educator. Mm-hmm. And so that's how I jumped into teaching.
And how long ago was that?
Boy, so it's been 3 years, I think. Yeah.
Do you remember what aspects of the curriculum were most appealing to you?
Yes. My religious upbringing was Catholic, which had my religious education had a very, sort of top down kind of classic, the way we educate children today. That was the way mine was done. So it was very rules based. And the thing about Godly Play that was so compelling is that it's sort of the opposite of that. Like the emphasis is on developing the spirituality of the child from within. And so the model is completely different than the one that I had learned from. And while there was value, of course, in my religious education, I think there was a lot of adult life that really didn't prepare me for. And I think that Godly Play has a much better foundation for what young people experience, especially in early adulthood.
Can you walk us through what happens in a Godly Play classroom?
Yes. Okay. So the first thing that we do, which is really important, is greeting the children and just asking them if they're ready to come in. And one component of that is meeting the children actually at eye level and respecting whether they're ready or not. So when they are ready, they come in and we gather in a circle, and we usually do an opening prayer. Before that, we make sure everybody knows each other, but we center and we get ready to hear a story. So then we tell a story, or I tell the story, and then we wonder about the story and we talk about it. After that, we do a lot of checking in with the kids about whether they're ready for the next step or not. So the next step is, the playtime basically, and it's Montessori based, and the kids can choose what they do at that time. And that component is probably the most important of the class time, because it gives the kids the time to digest what they just learned and what they were just asked to think about. From there, we do after we clean up our art or the work, we then do a closing feast, we call it. that very loosely, modeled on the end of the church service with the Eucharist. So we have our time with the feast, we pray before the feast, and then during the feast we share, something, maybe something we're grateful for. And then from there, we make sure that the kids are ready to go. And then in the same way we greet them, we also give them a goodbye. What's the opposite of a greeting? we say goodbye, but in a more formal way to each child at their level. That's the format.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've heard you talk before about being a storyteller as a spiritual practice for you. Can you tell us a little bit about maybe how you define spiritual practice in your life, and then how being a storyteller in godly play has become a spiritual practice for you?
So I would say, for me, a spiritual practice is about my sort of, for lack of a better word, I guess, sort of being with God, my relationship with God, and God, for me, also sort of includes sort of everything. Boy, this is hard, Kelly, to exactly describe what God is to me. Maybe I didn't mean to go quite there. In any case, to me, this is something that I'm doing all the time. I don't have a spiritual practice just at noon every day, to me, it's my whole life. So so that is my spiritual practice. So the thing about my whole life as my spiritual practice, so the way that godly play fits into that is, I think it's this wonderful invitation for the storyteller to just be a mirror. It invites you to be with these children in such a way that allows them, the closest maybe a teacher or a person, an adult, can, to a kind of a pure experience of God and spirituality. And so I'm not telling them anything. I don't have answers. We wonder together. I'm not an authority. I like the experience of being a mirror to children because they, in my opinion, are so much more present to sort of what God really is, in that experience. And so for me, it's just delightful. I feel like I get more from them. I hope they get something from me as well, but it fits into my world because it kind of pushes me into a place that I'd love to always be, but that's sort of my shortcut there.
I like it. So
did I answer that? Yeah.
Yeah, being a mirror and kind of spiritual practice, as all of life is a spiritual practice. Well, so then how would you say that the things that you've learned as a storyteller in godly play influence your daily life? Where do you see that influence, in the morning with your family, or when you're at work, or
The godly play curriculum is really rich. It's older than me. I believe it's at least 50 years. Well, it's from the 60s, right? The godly play curriculum. It was formed. It's been forming for quite a long time. And so it's this very rich curriculum that asks the teachers, the adults who are part of the process, to be in it's sort of the humble position of not knowing, of being really present with the kids and whatever their experience. And their experience may not look like what I have been conditioned to believe is spiritual or religious, but I don't know what experience they're having. I cannot know that. And that's part of the curriculum that you're trained with when you go through the training. And so with my kids, and actually, just with my whole life, it's like I can show up, but the way that things are, or what things mean, or there's just so much that I can't know.
Yeah.
And that is really helpful for being able to sort of live in peace with the world I'm in and the kids I have, and and the way middle-aged life is. So I think godly play is a great, I mean, it's a great training to go through, um, in that it just allows you the structure to kind of wonder at your own life in a way that's less judgmental and more
Yeah.
accepting. Everyone should go through it. It's great.
Yeah, so they do kind of model that curiosity, right? The training of, I wonder what this could mean. I wonder, I don't know about you, but that's where I see it pop into my life a lot is
Right.
this just gives me a little space between judging what I'm seeing or experiencing and stopping and going, I wonder what this is about.
Right. Right. And adults, I think, are taught, or we were taught as children, maybe, that adults always know everything. And then you become an adult and you might think you're supposed to know everything, but you really don't. I mean, the older you
Yeah.
get, the more humble you become. So the training, I mean, I think the godly play curriculum is so ingenious in the way it allows adults to be less of, sort of definers or leaders or whatever, but more like facilitators, which is what I would hope to be, in my best self, with my family.
Sure, and maybe more honest, especially when we're talking about faith and God, to
That's
say
right.
we don't we don't know all the answers in this mystery, but we engage in it together.
That's right.
Mm.
Yeah.
What would you say are your favorite? Do you have favorite memories from being with kids during godly play?
I have have a lot of good memories. There's one moment, I mean, there are actually several that stand out. And now I'm not going to remember the story. But there was a story that we told that was about a gift, getting a gift from God. And so the wondering question, and actually the beginning of our wondering around the story, was, what is the best gift you've ever received?
Mhm.
And my kids are about 4 to, I think our oldest child is 8. And in the curriculum, they tell us, a lot of kids are going to say, my doll, or maybe my dog. And as a teacher, we don't offer any judgmental comment about whether the value of what you named, of course. But there was one child who knew exactly what his best gift was, and his eyes were really big, and he said, it's snow. It's the best gift he ever got. And I thought, that is a great gift, snow. So, I mean, the kids always bring me back to, like, really what matters and, what's here. Um, I could say a lot more, but I won't go.
Well, tell us, do you have a favorite story or set of stories in the godly play curriculum?
Well, I do really like, the parables. I mean, I love this idea that there are these lessons, and the one that I have enjoyed a lot is the Good Samaritan, and some of that comes from the fact that the Good Samaritan wondering questions are really difficult. They would be difficult for an adult. For example, we tell the kids that, the priest walks by, the people who you think would help the Samaritan didn't. And so then we ask, who is the friend? Who is the friend of the Samaritan? Who is the friend of the person who is hurt in the story? So who is the friend of the person who's hurt? And we ask, like, is the robber a friend? Or, and the kids, of course not, the robber's not the friend. The robber did all the damage, but then they think about it, and it does stretch them to think just about the concept of being in judgment of a situation. I'm offering them the opportunity to judge. And it's interesting how many of them don't. Uh, it would be natural for them to think that the robbers are the worst people, or maybe the priest, but it's interesting to watch them take a step back and understand, or at least what I am projecting, they understand that I've asked them now to judge. And they're a little bit more, some of them, they're a little, I think they feel the weight of that. And so, or it seems so in their answers sometimes. So I've always enjoyed telling that story for that reason.
And you told it to adults this
Oh,
past
yes.
summer.
Yes, I did tell it to adults. Yeah, and it's what was most fascinating actually about telling it to adults was their reactions to the kids' answers. I mean, without the Godly Play training, I don't expect, I mean, of course it's going to be uncomfortable when we're in a church setting and a child is saying, no, I mean, we should all get revenge on the robbers. I mean, what are we talking about here? I mean, and so that makes everybody uncomfortable because that's not the right answer. But it's not the wrong answer either. So, but I too have been conditioned that way. And I love that we all get to experience that the kids, they're not quite as set, as we are in our spiritual ways or our definitions, of what the right spirituality looks like. Like they're not there yet.
Well, so we're all at home with our kids for these weeks to come. Are there aspects of Godly Play that you would invite children or parents of children who've been part of Godly Play into, just in the ways that they interact or the ways that they go about their day? Are there ways that we can wonder together about what's happening among us, or tell the stories of our lives at home that could be informed by Godly Play?
Well, one thing I would say, and I think that this is harder for parents than it is for kids, but we tend, I think the wondering is always great, like wondering what is your child's experience, or what are, ask our kids about their experiences of this. But I think there is a tendency to put meaning on things that maybe don't have the meaning that you think. I mean, that Godly Play asks us to widen our lens as grown-ups about what something means, and to not necessarily think we have the answer for what something means. So I'm thinking, specifically, I think a lot of parents are under the pressure to educate their children, and when I think it feels like a big pressure, and when you watch whether your child is capable or not, or I think there's just a lot of, well, this must mean something, or perhaps, if you're not getting along, or if the kids are fighting, or, the siblings, that it has some kind of meaning. And I just think we don't know. And so the wondering, I guess I would stay away from wondering about what things mean, and wondering more about like, oh, I wonder about, like I was saying earlier too, the changing of the leaves. Wonder about that. What is happening that is actually happening, not what you think it might mean for 10 years from now, or, what is actually happening now. And those are great things to wonder about, that I think are joyful and keep us in the moment. I think meaning and knowledge, they kind of take us out of that.
So really using wondering to stay in the present and to get more curious about what's happening in the present moment.
That is a much more succinct way to say it. Yes, I like that. That is what I mean. I think once we start asking like, why, or what does this mean, we're off. We're not with God there. I don't know where we are, but.
Well, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you talking with me today about this. I know it'll be great for everybody to see you and hear more about the gift that you are to our community. And I hope that all is well with you at home with Jack and Sonia.
It is. It's fine. And I hope people, I think you generally say in the bulletin or in the Children and Families newsletter that people can always contact me. And that's always true, especially now. I'm just at home. So
All
Yeah.
right. We'll let them know.
Great. Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you.
Yeah,